Right, well, welcome back to the show. I've been starting these with what's your why for competing in HYROX? Like, what's the motivator behind it for you?
Well, I like fitness, Greg. Um, I think I think that boils it down is that like I don't think that there was any like grand reason for why I was in the sport. Um, there really wasn't. It became, I mean, sports always been just like kind of a stress mitigation outlet for me, and then it turned into, hey, I'm kind of good at this particular subset of events when you put it together, and I'm already working out all the time anyway. So maybe work out. Let's maybe apply a little bit of the knowledge that I have from sports physiology and stuff like that and actually make a training plan and program that works for my training for this and not just use it as I'm just going to sweat every day. So I feel a little bit of joy, like so that my brain makes a tiny bit of serotonin to get me to tomorrow. Um, so yeah, I mean, like the overall why, it'll move. It'll always be a kind of shifting. Like sometimes the why is really big, um, from an internal standpoint, where it's like the only reason that I'm training or working out today is just to feel okay. There are days where that's the why. And then there are other times where it's maybe a little more competitively based, where, hey, the reason I'm training or working out today is because I actually have started to develop goals and wanting to be a world champion. Um, that was not my why when it started, but it's turned into, hey, maybe I could be a world champion, and like maybe that's what I'm chasing today. And then other times the why could just be that I'm trying to set, like I really hope that my kid goes down the athletic path. And so there are days where I'm getting up and I'm training and I'm thinking like I just really want to continue to lay the groundwork for hopefully him coming into this and him n never seeing me like making excuses for, I didn't give my best effort in a session because of this or because of that. So it's really, it's got multiple facets, and it always shifts. There's not a just a pure strong like this is the one reason why I do this.
Yeah, yeah. You were last on. It's a couple of years actually since you've been
Yeah.
on here, which is crazy. But and you are still like, and we can talk about your training in a bit, but you are still like high volume. But I think you were very high volume in the past.
Hmm.
Do you feel like your wire has shifted since that time? Like now you're a little bit more like world champion, and now you're a dad. Like, do,
Yeah.
do you feel like it's a healthier place that you train from now to have those motivators?
Um, yes. So in terms of total volume of training, it's not really that different.
Okay.
I'm doing as much now as I was kind of back then. If not, as crazy as it sounds, possibly a tiny bit more. As insane as that sounds, possibly a tiny bit more. In that actually over like I think there was the thought that like, hey, this is just gonna wear his body down, like to a point where it's not gonna be sustainable. But turns out that I kind of just adapted, and found that like actually I'm having less days where I feel like crap from the volume of training. And so it actually was able to shift up just a little bit more. And that became kind of is where the sweet spot that I'm sitting at. Um, and that seems to be the recoverable volume that I can put in. From a healthier place, I am definitely in a mentally healthier place, than where I was probably definitely from when I entered the sport originally, and then from when we spoke. Yeah, I mean, so many things have changed in my life, since that time frame. There have been a lot of big shifts, of course, with having a kid because I think I feel around the time we talked might have been close to when he was born, not too far off of that. I think it was
Yeah.
coming off or right before Chicago. Um,
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure exactly, but it was around the time. I think maybe like you're expecting, and so it was like imminent. I think was
yeah, yeah, it
whether
was super
yeah,
close because I mean,
yeah,
like when I finished second, to David Magida, he was born like a week after that, or
right.
something to that effect. And it was really like I was having to keep an eye on flights to even go up to that race. because it was a very much, hey, if she goes into labor, like I gotta go hop on the next flight home kind of deal. But we were gonna take the risk of going up there and racing, and it all played out well. Um, but all that said, yeah, I think that since our last conversation, there's just been so much perspective shift. Um, with having a kid and just the relationship dynamics that all come into play with all of that
Hmm.
that have kind of like my patience has grown. I've mellowed out a little bit more. I'm not nearly like I was never like a super emotionally volatile individual, but I could be really, really tough on myself to a detrimental degree. And I think a lot of that as I've been competing in the sport and having now had a kid has gotten so much better. Um, and that's kind of a like I would say for my competition, that's a dangerous thing. Um, because I've removed myself as a barrier to myself. Where I used to get in my own way a lot more. And I don't do that nearly as much. And that's really helped.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's uh let's talk about the season just gone. So the 24-25 season. Like we're recording this a couple of months after Chicago.
Hmm.
Let's start with Chicago. Like, what's your immediate thoughts if I say how did Chicago go for you? Presumably you're happy with that.
Yeah, I raced about as well as I could have raced, and two other guys raced better. And I mean, I said in like even interviews before the race, I was like, for me to win, I've got to have the perfect day, and I can't have other guys have perfect days. And Tim had, I would say, a perfect day. Hunter didn't have a perfect day, but he had a pretty darn good day. Um, and I had almost a perfect day. So like yeah, I felt that I felt that I was in a position to finish in the top three. Um, and it's always fun when you've done interviews beforehand and you say stuff and then they could pull that back and replay it and it's like, darn, he almost exactly said what was going to happen. Because that's at least I like having a good beat on the reality of things. Where it's like, yeah, no, I'm probably not the favorite and that's okay, but like I kind of know where my strengths and weaknesses lie and where the field is and all that stuff. So I walk away from it saying like I set a top three as where I could definitely land at. I think it was a big stretch goal to think I could win it. I still thought I could win it. Um, and I'm happy with walking away from it, at least the individual race. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it was a fantastic performance. How about the rest of the weekend? I mean, obviously that was a little more.
It
Yeah.
tiring. It was tired. It was good and like it took some time after like getting away from Chicago, like a couple of weeks, to actually get to be happy about Friday night or yeah, to actually be happy with finishing third. Because like it was just you go from race to race to race so fast. So it's like I'm racing the first night, that's a great race. That at least sets up the next two nights to be really good. And then, the second night was really good until it wasn't. And then after that, you have the next day and you're like literally just caught like dead in the middle of everybody involved with it. And I mean, I wasn't going to remove myself from the situation by not feeling a certain type of way. So I felt a certain type of way about it. And that's just how it was. And so that made everything just messy more than anything else. Where I was like, damn, it would have been really nice to just enjoy finishing third and then go win a relay championship and then go into, Sunday with nothing else to lose, nothing else to really. I mean, you could gain something else, but instead, what it became was like, okay, I finished third. Let's have that completely overshadowed by a bunch of shenanigans and have to sit in the middle of that. But then once I got a little bit of distance from it, it was enough to say, well, not my monkeys, not my circus. They can fuck around, and I'm gonna have some repercussions from it, but it'll be fine. Like I'll sort through it. Finished third at Worlds. Pretty good job, Dylan. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I was able to kind of reflect back and be happy. But in the moment, the thing that takes the thing that's the most emotionally volatile is the thing that takes up the most space and the most
Yeah,
energy. And so you're not able to like reflect back on a good performance and be happy because you've got all this other stuff going on. Um, and then the race on Sunday, just in that doubles race, my body was just cracked. And so, we raced terribly. To be honest, like Jeremy and I both just raced like dog water. And it was just like, all right, dude, we're just gonna suck today. But at least we got to suck in the Elite 15, so that's fun.
yeah.
And you just take it for what it is.
Yeah, I should say, by the way, just for anyone that's not aware, so like on the night after the individual race, you raced for the USA in the relay
Yeah,
and ultimately got disqualified, and then the following night you ran with Jeremy in the Elite 15 doubles.
yeah,
Jeremy was part of the incident that got the USA team disqualified in the relay. Like I know you said your body was wrecked. I was going to ask
yeah.
you about your recovery across the weekend and those three races. Like,
hmm
is there? Well, I mean, you do a lot of training, obviously, so
Yeah.
you're reasonably high volume. But was it just the intensity of the race and the busyness and everything surrounding it that?
Yeah, yeah, it was the intensity of the racing, but also just like the lack of sleep. That's what gets you more than anything because
Yeah,
like you look at the so you race, I go to bed at 9:30 at night. We're finishing races now at 9:30 at night. And then you go to drug testing. And then if you've raced really hard and you sweat like I do, like okay, you've got to pee. Well, that's gonna take hours. So like I from the first night we race I don't leave the venue until past midnight, well past midnight, for having to pee, pass drug test, and all that kind of stuff. So that takes a while. So you get home at 1, and then you're trying to wind down and everything, but you've got a circadian rhythm that's used to waking you up at around 5:36. So you're gonna only sleep maybe 4 hours. Like so your sleep gets thrown off, and then you're just not able to recover from what would be like not that hard of a session if you did it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then got a good night's rest and got up and then you did a relay race. Okay. Like it should be fine, but what begins to happen is the pomp and circumstance and the timing of everything throws all that kind of stuff off. And I'm somebody who I know that like when my sleep is off, like my recovery is pretty bad. So once I got to that Sunday time frame, I could have felt a lot worse than I did. Um, but it had all just kind of mounted up. And what happened was like by about 25 minutes into the race, like my blood sugar just kind of tanked out on me. I ran to the like little table where we had our drinks at. I'd put a drink there, it had got knocked off. And so I had like nothing. And so I was just in a bin. And so I think like you could see me, I was just pale. I looked like crap. My mom was there and my wife, and they're like, yeah, you look bad. I was like, well, guess what? I felt that way too. So so yeah, when you just have like a culmination of things like that all add up, it's not nearly as easy as I could do those three activities. I could do a solo sim at the gym. I could do a solo relay double legs on Saturday, and then I could do a doubles race on Sunday, and I'd be totally fine. But if you completely mess up the sleep schedule and you stress everything out, like your body just by the time you have to put out high level performance, you ain't got nothing to pull from.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're done.
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how it felt.
Okay. Um, the race that qualified you for the Chicago Elite 15 was Vegas, which you won.
Yeah.
Uh, um, and at the end, you shouted, "Do I have to remind you who the f I am?"
Yeah.
Who was that too?
Just like in general. Like I said, I had been asked that question afterwards, like who was that to? And I was like, whoever I needed to be to. Like that can just be a calling thing that I can go back to at any point. Like I told Lauren with when I talked to her about it, I was like, that might be to me, That might be 3 years from now. Like I'm kind of on the ropes of hanging on in this sport, and I've got maybe one last crack to make a world made like a world final again. And I'm sitting at home sulking and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I could do it, but and I pull that thing up and I look at myself and I look at that intensity and I'm like, that dude's in there somewhere. Like, so do I have to remind you who I am? Like, so there's that. And then yeah, it just it felt like it feels like a lot of times I do get overlooked, kind of in the sport as to my ability to, I don't know. It might just be because I don't have like these qualities that are on paper that awesome. Like I'm not that strong. I'm not that fast. If you took everybody, because I know we do like the ranking, the Elite 15 kind of deals by all of their metrics and all that stuff. And if you went in there and looked at like the 2K times and the 10K times and the lifts and all that, on paper, I kind of don't line up. Like they're like he's weaker than everybody and he's slower than everybody. And like it just doesn't make sense until you just tie it all together and it's like, and there he is. Like he's somehow hanging around. So yeah, I feel like there's a in the narrative sometimes I was getting slept on and I had had a really bad last major. So it makes sense. Like I raced in Amsterdam to open the year and I was horrendous. And I think a lot of that had to do with more so with travel than like some underlying health problems than it had to do with any kind of shape I was in. But yeah, Vegas was a very angry time period for me, to be honest. I had a lot going on that wasn't even sport related and just made life like, yeah, I'm pissed off right now and I'm gonna let y'all know it. And if and people on the internet did not like it, they were like, what I don't know. I guess this is a say what's a bell end? Like, I guess that's a
Island.
saying over. Yeah, y'all's man, so many fucking British people. What a bellend. I was like, well, at least I learned something new. Never heard that insult before. Uh, but
Do you
yeah,
like feeling like you're an underdog though? Like you say you're overlooked sometimes, but I wonder sometimes if you lean into that and if that motivates you sometimes a little bit.
I'm getting away from that. In that, I think it's nice when you're not confident in yourself to get to play the underdog. And you like having that. Like I'll even if I'm favorite, to be fair, even if I'm a favorite, I'm gonna manufacture a chip to put on my shoulder. Like I think it's good to have that. Like you need to look around and be like, I don't know who in here hates me, but somebody hates me. And I'm just gonna make it up. I'm gonna be like, that person hates me. All right, cool, I got you. Like it's good to come. It's not good to live that way. Don't live that way. Like, please, the 23 hours that you're not racing a HYROX race, don't walk around like that. It's really bad for you. Um, but when you're training and you're racing, it's really good to have somebody you're proving wrong. And to be fair, if you get to a certain level in the sport, there are going to be people who want to see you fail. Um, so I don't even really have to manufacture those. Um, they're there for me. But sometimes you just have to make them more apparent to yourself, even in training. Like when I go to my local gym and train, I don't think there's anybody in that gym that really knows me that well and definitely doesn't dislike me. They just know he's the really sweaty guy that does kind of crazy workouts. Nobody's preying on my downfall. But I'm gonna bring it up in my head that somebody somewhere across the world is thinking like, yeah, next time I see Dylan online, I'm looking to smack him upside the head. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm here to smack you back. Like that's that's a good feeling to have. But with the whole underdog situation, as I'm getting more and more confident in myself and everything, no, I want to put it. If you want to put me out there as the favorite, cool, I'll wear it. Like, and instead of being like, oh, it's nice to go up under the radar a little bit and then surprise people, like put a target on my back, take shots, let's go. Like, it's time to step up into that role, and not just hang back and be okay with, maybe he surprises people. Don't be surprised when I win. Like, let's start living like that. Um, and that's not to be cocky, but that's just where I want to get to mentally.
Yeah, I should say. I mean, I was aware, like subconsciously, really, but when I was like preparing for this, I was looking at your website, and it was 5 times HYROX Elite 15 World Championship qualifier, like 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
that's an achievement in itself, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, you shouldn't be overlooked at all, for sure. Okay, so uh, and I mean, you've obviously raced a few times. Amsterdam, you touched on that was like a tough start to the season, but then New York, just before Chicago,
Yeah.
you nearly got the world record. Um, presumably a nice confidence boost before Chicago. That was.
Yeah, it was good. So like I needed to race one more time. So I had raced Miami down in I guess that was in April or so. And just I had a pretty bad race down in Miami. And it was after that that we kind of figured out that I was having some issues with like my iron levels. And that was causing a lot of problems for me. It was other than just like the general fatigue that I was feeling all the time. Um, it was causing like a lot of digestive problems. And so I was getting sick after like my workouts all the time, my races all the time. And it hit me again in Miami. And I was like, what is going on? So started taking some like extra iron supplementations and everything. And it was within like 2.5, 3 weeks, like something flipped. And I was like, I'm not having stomach problems anymore. I'm not having like Greg, I'd be falling asleep 2 o'clock, middle of the day. Like I would legitimately be sitting, like trying to type and work on something, and I would just suddenly just like start fading out. And I'm like, come on, you got like I got work to do. I got like no. And my body I was like, something's wrong. Um, and I don't know if it's what happened after Vegas that kind of kickstarted stuff because I got extremely sick coming back from that. Like probably the sickest I've ever been in my life. And so I was out of training for about 8 days. Like I couldn't do anything. And if you know me, like I will try to train through anything. And so I got really, really sick after that. It took probably a month for my body to bounce back from that. So by the time me and Jeremy were racing together for Houston, I was still feeling like I was maybe 90%. I hadn't even gotten back to 100%. And that was 4 weeks post starting back training. And whatever that did was that really kind of sent my body spiraling. And then I was just going through like massive bouts of fatigue. And I don't know how it all played out, but it basically caused something to happen to put me into an anemic state. And that just started wrecking me. But then when that got fixed, I was able to show up in New York and I was like, oh my God, I feel amazing. And so I kind of been racing like a little bit handicapped to a degree. Um, And I think that that had plagued me to a small degree even earlier on in the year. But it just really got amplified after Vegas. And I just happened to, luckily, I happened to catch a time where I was competing in Vegas and doing okay because it would seem that I would have these ebbs and flows in like how my body was responding to stuff. But since then and through Worlds and then since Worlds, like things have been a lot better, which is great. But all that said, like you said, it was a huge confidence booster to come off of that bad race in Miami, kind of figure out what was causing everything,
Mhm.
and then come from that and be like, oh, this is what happens when my body can operate. Like, all right, sweet, we might have something here. Um, and very good thing I did not get a world record out on that course because that was a Mickey Mouse. That would have been a Mickey Mouse record. Like, nah, we can't. The way that those sleds were moving, even if the running did seem pretty darn long out there on that, the way that those sleds moved, like, yeah,
It wouldn't have felt as good as it could have. Uh,
no,
okay.
it would have felt very much fraudulent. I would have been like, there was a reason I took my time kind of crossing the line because they called out like when I came in what the split was, and I was like, I'm gonna have to do wall balls unbroken to maybe have a shot at it. And then I was unbroken for wall balls, and I was like, take your time crossing the line. Don't like don't rush. Hopefully you don't break this. And so I took a couple seconds. I was like, okay, we probably missed it. Which is good. Like, and that's not to say that I was like, oh, I missed the record on purpose. I didn't, but I definitely didn't make it my priority to throw that last wall ball up and sprint. Like, I didn't want the record.
Yeah.
Not on that course. It just isn't. Nah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, touching on like the training and sort of that side of things, like you mentioned earlier, how like if we slacked you up and you're not the best runner necessarily and you're not the strongest, why do you think you've transferred to like hybrid HYROX like better than a lot of runners with runners bodies and things like that? Do you have a theory of why that is?
I might just like. Well, I'm not particularly like our traditional strength metrics are normally barbell based, and I just don't move that well under a barbell. Like I like just my anatomy just doesn't move with the barbell very well. So I look weaker than I am until we start like touching sleds and stuff, which is a different kind of like more awkward strength. And even if it's not like you don't have to be that strong to push and pull the sleds, there's this strength endurance side of things, which my body plays really well too. So I'm sure it has to do with it probably has some to do with like my muscle fiber composition type, how that's laid out, whether it be a lot more slow twitch than fast twitch, which is causing me to be like my peak strength is just terrible, but I have like really good strength endurance. So I'll probably have some of those type 2 fibers that tend to lean a little bit twitchier on the fast side, but they have great, um, endurance capacity. I would have to go do all these tests, honestly. I'd need to go get like muscle biopsies and I mean I've been doing some stuff with like a lactate monitor and seeing how my body responds within certain types of movements to different intensities and how that builds up lactate and how quickly my body's flushing it and all that kind of stuff. The short of it is I don't have enough sports science in my back pocket to have had done on myself to be able to tell you why. Um, I can make guesses all day long, but I would really need to go to like a physiology lab and go through all kinds of testing for them to be like, oh, well, you just happen to be really efficient at this, and this. And it just so happens that that's exactly what HYROX demands.
But you
Um,
weren't doing anything in like in the years prior to HYROX that you think, yeah, I think that set me up well for it.
Not really, because if we look at like, so I mean, I was just a runner. Like I started running when I was 13. I wasn't really that special of a runner. I never was that fast to any degree that would be like, oh, this is, he's got something special going on here. And then like I didn't even do sport competitively for like 3 years because of a back injury. So all I was doing was like riding a bike and using basically an elliptical. So I don't know, maybe it's 3 years of using an elliptical from ages like 18 to 21. That's what actually turns me into a beast at high rocks. Like, so I was doing that. I was kind of lifting weights, but there was yeah, there's nothing I can really point to that's like, oh, this laid such a great foundation to transition over into high rocks. It seems like it's something, at least in part, genetic, to work perfectly for all of the demands that this asks of you. Like this ability to kind of run fast and to kind of erg well and to, be able to have like these long bouts of strength endurance. And then I think it also helps that I'm not a particularly like pretty runner economically. Like I run okay, but I think that your really fast runners tend to have great running economy. And I think that it kind of helps to not be that economical of a runner because it gets broken down by the stations. So if you've got like this great VVO2 max because you move really well. So your velocity at your VO2 max is pretty fast because your movement pattern is really efficient. And then all of a sudden I start, throwing wrenches at your legs and you're having to move kind of funny like that. And that's what each station's doing. Well, now your movement economy is just starting to look more and more tarnished. And that's where you were really pulling a lot of your ability from, was your ability to just run nice and smooth. Well, you're not doing that anymore. Now the oxygen consumption costs are going up crazy. Um, and now you're just like, oh man, I'm not nearly as good of a runner as I was when I was just running. I think we see a lot of that. Um, and so I think it helps. I think it helps to be a little bit shitty at everything, um, so that you could never really be that shitty once you're tired.
This episode is coming out the week after a chat I had with a running technique specialist. So you've just ruined that whole episode. Basically
Dude,
saying
let me tell
ignore
you,
it.
he's a running technique specialist. I'm an idiot. Um, so probably listen to him. Um, yeah, probably listen to him.
Are you doing like we're now like in the off season? Like the first major is in
Hmm.
Hamburg at the start of October. Do you think about your year differently? Are you training largely the same throughout? How do you think about your year?
So my training doesn't change too much throughout the year, but what changes is like the amount of risk I'm willing to take with intensity. So that's what really shifts more than anything else. It's like when you get into that off season period, like coming off of world championships, I'm still working out a lot afterwards, but I'm not forcing it. Like we're not gonna go and put together super hard workouts within a couple of weeks, like 2, 3 weeks. Um, Maybe if I want to, if I feel like it, if I'm feeling motivated to do something, then yeah, I might chalk something up. But I think the biggest thing you have to do is like listen to your body. And I know you like a lot of people, especially if you come off of a bad, let's say you have a bad championship race, you're gonna be just chomping at the bit to go start swinging the hammer again. Um, and that's probably the wrong thing to do. You need to come back and you need to like settle down for a little while. You can throw a little bit of intensity here and there, but if you're waking up and like dragging yourself through intense sessions at that time period, you're just really setting up your next season for failure. What happens is there's a shift in how often I'm going to include long intensity. There's going to be a shift in how much fun I'm having with training. I might just go do stuff that I like to do. Like during that time period of late June and everything, I was just doing trail running. Like I was going out to the trails a bunch. I enjoyed doing that. Wasn't really doing any track work, wasn't doing a ton of speed work. I would just play around more than anything else in training, and not let it be something that was mentally or hyper physically fatiguing. Um, and then you start, okay, well, I can't take too long in that period. I have to start kind of creating some structure again, and I have to start throwing in harder workouts that are going to mimic race efforts because, yeah, the first major is 7 weeks from now. Maybe less than that, maybe six, um, give or take. But all that said, I plan on competing there in Hamburg, so I would love to show up and actually punch a ticket early. I've been you listed off that hey, I was at the HYROX like Worlds in 2021, 2022, 2020. I was always very late to get those. Like it never happened early. It didn't happen that I qualified for the 2026 championships or no, it whatever championships. It was always in the year of the championship. It was never the like I wasn't the one punching a ticket in 24 for 25 or 23 for 24. It was always last minute like, "Oh, and Dylan's it." Um so it'd be nice to maybe be able to do that. But I've actually looked at the HYROX season and it actually lines up really well with if you looked at your season the same way that a distance runner would in college. Um, so you've got your summer period to get ready for cross country. So your bigger endurance based work, stuff like that. Then you're going to race cross country in, hopefully, if you go all the way to nationals, you're going to race in November. Okay. Then, and that's where we'd be looking at the kind of majors time frame. So I'm going to be racing in October. I'm going to race like my Elite 15 doubles or my doubles race to try to qualify for Elite 15 in November. So we'd look at that as like, here's the cross country block. Then you go into indoor track. So indoor track, you can kind of decide how are you going to approach your indoor track season based on how your cross country season went. If you felt like, hey, I had some injury issues, this or that, or I noticed that I had this long engine and I was there, but bro, I got outkicked. I got outkicked at conference and at regionals, and then so I need to build some kind of like top end. You're going to spend your indoor season on that, and then from there, what would happen is you would race normally around February. That's going to be your peak for indoor season. Then after that, you're going to tune up for outdoor season, and your peak is in June. Well, if you look at the major schedule and how everything lays out, it's going, okay, you're racing somewhere around October, November. You're racing somewhere around January, late January, early February, and you're racing in June. And so I actually look at the High Rock schedule in the season as like a rolling calendar, the same way a collegiate distance runner would. And I kind of tailor my peaks of intensity, volume, all that kind of stuff in a very similar pattern.
Okay. It must be nice. Like I was thinking about when you were saying about you're not forcing the intensity and things like that now. It must be nice. You're one of the auto qualifiers for all of the majors.
Yeah.
Whereas like some of those guys out there are sort of chasing two times to get to qualify for those majors. And they must be the ones like really forcing the intensity now.
Yeah, and like you get kind of the first mover advantage for in HYROX of I was somebody who was around when this whole thing started coming around with these majors and being the Elite 15 and having times and that kind of stuff. So if we go back like 2, 3 years ago, when we started seeing the change away from just time-based qualifications to that. So it really helped to already be established a little bit in the sport, because that kind of gave you a leg up with regards to your training, knowing how to race, all that stuff. And that started punching your tickets early. And that has just continued to pay dividends because, okay, I had a time here that got me into a major that allowed me to win a major. And then by winning a major, that got me into all the other majors that next year. And then I won another major. So that got me into like, so it started really paying dividends. I told my wife, I said, hell, I only got to have 2 good races a year. Like, I said I can go win one major, show up the worlds. Like one major, show up the world. Like if I just keep on doing that, I mean, I'll be the least. They'll be like, Dylan never races. He races twice a year. Like, yep, that's all you gotta do, baby.
I was going to ask you about this actually. I listened to you on the is it the Peanut Butter and Mountains podcast?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Uh,
with Chad.
yeah, and it was quite a nice story I thought where there was a I think it was a road race and you sort of mentally just weren't feeling it,
Yeah,
uh, and then like that was the catalyst for all those other races and qualifying for all those
yeah.
races and things like. Can you just like repeat that for us on
Y-
this?
Yeah, so that was February. It was actually February 18th of 2024. So it was we had kind of positioned doing a road race right where my son's birthday was. So we were all going to be in Charlotte, which was Charlotte, North Carolina, which was kind of a meeting place in between where we live at, our family lives at, because we don't live, we're like 4.5 hours from home. So we always wanted to do a race on his birthday. And we want to have birthday races. So there's just like this continual thing that August birthday comes around. Hey guys, we're gonna get together as a family, do a race together. And that was gonna be that was the very first one. And so I'd signed up for the 15K. Maria was going to race the 10K. And then what was going to happen is I was going to kind of loop back around and go find them and we were going to finish together. Um, and it was like a pointless road race, to be honest, for me to take seriously. But it was leading into right before the HYROX in Miami and then not that far out from the major in DC. And I was like, I need to take this, like, I need to race hard. Um, and I did not want to, like, at all. I did not want to. And I was just complaining, which I'm known to do. My wife will tell you, I will complain and complain about self-imposed things. I'm like, God, I don't want to do this so bad. She's like, you're the one who planned this. I'm like, I know. But it's just that like feeling of one, this is probably gonna hurt really bad, and two, like, what if I suck at it? That's gonna also like not only it's bad when things go bad, but it's worse when like hurt the entire time. You're like, great, I have all this pain and I failed. Beautiful. So I'm going into this and I have it in my head like this is my last really hard effort before I go down to Miami and everything. And I'm just wanting to cop out. And she told me the whole night before and the morning of. She's like, you don't have to run hard. You could literally just jog this with me and him. Like it's fine. And I looked at her, I was like, I know this makes no sense to you, but if I quit on this stupid, pointless road race right now and I don't go push myself, it's gonna start a cascading effect of me being like, I can just back off. I could just like, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do. And so I went and ran it, ran great, had an awesome race, and I was like, I'll be happy that I did this. I'll complain a lot now, but I'll be happy that I did this. And then boom, we hit that race, and then we go down and we run 55, 30, whatever, 4, something like that. And then we come off of that, and then right after that, we go to race DC and we win DC. And it all just got kicked off. And again, I could just feel that that was, for some reason, that was a turning point where I said, like, if you back off now, you're going to start backing off again and again and again. And I just don't want to ever compromise like that. Um, and that's kind of a consistent thing that I think if you start negotiating your way out of tough situations, you'll continually do that. So just make the hard decision and like, yeah, it might suck the whole time and you might fail, but like, okay, at least you tried. Like
Mm.
there was no world where I was okay with not trying. No matter how scared I was of, it sucking. I was like, Dylan, if you won't even try, like you're a bitch. Like, um, and honestly, it came back around like before New York. I was a little in my head. Um, and I was talking to Maria, and I know that this podcast at this point I've cussed a bunch of times, so sorry, Greg.
It's
Uh,
good.
I don't know if it does anything for like how it goes out to audiences, but whatever. But I was talking to her before the race, and I was kind of getting in my head and everything, and she was like, "Listen, if you can let like these other people that are gonna be lining up against you in New York get in your head, you're a pussy." And like she told me that to my face. She's like, "You're a pussy," and I don't think it's like. I was like, damn, that's kind of what I need to hear. Like, I said, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Okay, never mind. I'm not, hey, I didn't appreciate that, but I appreciate that. Like, I kind of needed that. I needed a 5'3" girl to look me in the eye and go, you're being a pussy. Like, that'll, uh, that'll make you straighten up real quick if you're in your head. You're like, oh, that's
Yeah.
my wife too. Like,
I love that. I know that you sort of touched on it, but that obviously you then went on to win the race in DC, which then essentially qualifies you for the subsequent majors the next season, which meant you were in the Vegas race and you won that, which got you into Chicago, and there you finished third. And obviously you've still got to turn up and perform and things and
yeah,
do that. But that catalyst for just like running that road race that you didn't want to run was yeah,
yeah.
all started there. Yeah. Love it. All right. I remember asking you this last time when we spoke, but I'm often asked with like I talk to a lot of the elite 15, a lot of the top people at the sport, and are there any sort of common characteristics I see amongst them all? And I do find it,
Obsession.
yeah, I find it a hard like question to answer because people are all different. You know, they're very different personalities. But what do you and yeah, like you just said, obsession. You said you can probably guarantee that, like, if you ask them now what they're thinking about, they're probably thinking about HYROX. Like,
Yeah.
would you still agree with that? Like 2 years on, and is there anything else that you've noticed amongst that group?
Yeah. I mean, there's of course varying degrees as to like how obsessed and minded they are about things. And I think that that might also have to do with like what the rest of your life consists of. Like I think if you're, if you're just like let's say you're a 25, 24-year-old guy, maybe have a girlfriend, don't have a family, you're racing like this can be your sole focus. Um Almost maybe to a detrimental degree, like to where you can be hyper obsessed with it. I think that there's to compete at a world class level, you do have to be obsessed. But I think I've become probably less obsessed than I used to be, because my world has just expanded. With regards to other areas of focus. Now, I think the whole obsession part plays in that regardless of how much my world has expanded, I'm always coming back to this. So I am always obsessed with the process and obsessed with racing and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not overwhelmed by it. And I think that obsession can become overwhelming when it's your only thing. Like you have to perform and you have to do this because what else is there? Like, so I think there can be that. And you'll see different levels of obsession and identity tied to just purely performance, predicated on what else do you have in your life. Um, and I'm not speaking to anyone in particular with that. I'm just saying I think that that's something that you can see. But I think the biggest thing that you also see is just a love for the process of it. You might have a couple of people who just love the theatrics and love the winning and that kind of thing, but even your biggest, seemingly like ego driven, they're still in love with the process. And when you talk to them and it's like you start getting into the weeds with it, you're like, oh, you've thought about this a lot. Like you've taken your time. Like you're not just some people might come across as like, I'm just really good and I just do this and that. Nah, you've thought about it. I've talked to you. I know you're training, but like you've really gotten into it, huh? And so everybody, they know the process and they're obsessed with perfecting the process. Um, and it was I was thinking about this during my workout yesterday. So while I was in the middle of one of the run intervals, I was doing 10 by every 6 minutes. I'd run a 1K at like 320 kilometer pace or so, and then go into 30 wall balls. And I was doing it, and I was about 4 or 5 in. And for some reason, I caught myself kind of daydreaming, and I was thinking more like really future oriented, like winning this, signing a deal for that, do. And it struck me like in the middle of the interval, I went, okay, well, what are you going to be thinking about when when you do that? Okay, let's say you are the world champion and you are on this treadmill again and you have signed that deal. What are you going to be thinking about? And I was like, I should probably just be in love with the moment right now, shouldn't I? And I was like, yeah, you should. You should be in love with this moment. So I want you to think about rep number 6 and rep number 7. And I want you to think about rep number 8. And I want you to think about each of them individually. And I want you to love every kilometer that you run and every set of 30 wall balls that you do. Love this process because eventually you're going to get what you're working towards. And I promise you, it's not going to be as good as you think it is. And if that's what you're daydreaming about right now, you're missing what actually is going to be sustainable. Um, because then you're going to get success and fall apart. So it was just an interesting thing that like went across my mind is like you should probably be loving this process right now. I was like, oh yeah, I should. Okay, and it kind of snapped me back in. And it's fun to have those little moments of clarity that happen sometimes because I think people you get really caught up chasing something. You get caught up chasing a title or just a time or anything like that. Hey, even if we take it down and say, "Oh, I qualified for Worlds." Okay, like, but did you enjoy qualifying for Worlds? Like, how's it gonna like next year? Are you just gonna be like, "Well, I qualified for Worlds and then I'm still in here and I'm still training," but like, it just doesn't have that same feel to it anymore. It's like, yeah, because you put all the emphasis on that one goal and you stop loving like everything surrounding it. And that one goal is just one thing. Loving everything around it makes it a hell of a lot better because you got a lot more to when you can appreciate every run and every workout, you're not going to like them all. Some of them are going to be really bad and you're going to be disappointed. But if you can put importance on everything and not overlook it, you're going to be a lot more engaged and you're going to love the sport a lot more than just putting these really high points out there to go chase.
Yeah. You've probably had some insight into that. Like after the Vegas race, for example, it was like a great win, but then my guess with you is like you were back to work the next day. like,
Yeah, I mean, I
well,
raced like 3 times that weekend, so like, yeah, I mean, it was a good win. It was a weight off my shoulders, for to a degree, like because it's like, oh, thank God, finally. Um, But yeah, it's very transient. Like you can enjoy it for just a moment. And I've watched that race a couple of times. That's about it. I mean, like how long are you gonna live in that moment? Like I can go like sometimes my kid wants to watch it. Like to be honest, like August will ask to watch HYROX races. So go, I want to watch Dada. Like and we'll go find a race. And so it's cool to have that. And so it's great to win and have those winning moments and you can sit down and watch it and be like, yeah, your dad won that. But it's like I'm not gonna stay there. I'm gonna go into the next training session. So yeah, you you do find pretty quickly that everything that you hope and dream of is like all right, that's cool.
how about on the start line of a race, like a major race? What's going through your head at that point?
So I mean, it's changed over time. You know, like early on, you're so caught up in just like the fact that you've gotten there, and you're like, well, like I've gotten this far, and that's about as far as I've thought. You're in the position of like the dog that caught the car kind of deal. You're like, well, don't really know what to do now. And so those are your first kind of experiences, and then after that, you start like the more you've been there and the more you've been there, it just starts feeling like a workout with buddies, like a lot of the time. You're like you freak out a little bit. I don't think it'll happen nearly as much after this last like world championships. Leading into world championships and Chicago, like 15, 20 minutes before the race, I was having a full freak out. Like my brain was just going haywire. I was like, oh my God, I'm about to just fail again. Like I had had two world championships that had not gone well. Like Manchester, crap. Nice, not very good. And I was like, here I am, I'm lining up again. Vegas was fraudulent. I'm a fraud. Like, my brain's just going every which way, and none of them were the right one. Until finally it got like lined up right before it was go time, and that was much to the help of sitting down with my son and my wife, and just like again, like I said earlier, you can become overwhelmed by the obsession. In that moment, I was overwhelmed by the obsession, but because my world had expanded out, I was able to go to one of those other places and recenter and kind of be like, okay, like it's gonna be all right. And then come back and be like, okay, I do love this shit. Let's go. Like, and that was nice. And again, that's growth. That's something I did not have 3 years ago. I would have just freaked out. And so now having had have successfully faced those emotions and then going out and raced well off of it, I think that when I line up in the start tunnel, it's just going to be fun from now on. And like, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I know some of the health issues that cause bad races in the past. We got that figured out. I've started to get some of the mental barriers out of the way. We got that figured out. Well, now I can just kind of race loose and like really just enjoy it. Almost like how I race in just regular races. When we're not in a major setting or anything like that. It's continually progressed to where now I go line up for a regular race, I'm having a good time. When I first lined up for a regular race, it was deadly serious. And so now I expect the whole when I was lining up for majors is deadly serious to become we're having a good time. And you can have a good time and still be really competitive. Like
Mhm.
don't get those mixed up. Some of the best competition you'll ever put down is when you're in a state of just joy. Um, and so if I can bring joy and looseness to the start line as opposed to anxiety and fear, like that's a dangerous combination. Fitness and joy paired together, you get a happy fit motherfucker, that's a hard guy to beat. Like, and it's frustrating because you're like, shit, they're having such a good time.
Love
That's
it.
hard to deal with.
um, if you weren't doing HYROX, if you weren't doing like hybrid fitness, what do you think you'd be obsessing over?
I'd probably just be running in the woods and riding my bike a lot. Like, like I would probably just be doing that. I don't know. So when I had that time period where I was injured and like I didn't have a competitive outlet, like I couldn't race, I couldn't do track and field, I couldn't do cross country or anything like that. Um, I, I really found myself in academics. So I was just in the books. I was an absolute bookworm, and like the amount that I like the magnitude that I train now is how I studied. Like I would just sit and I'd read and I'd go through and I'd rewrite notes. And that was all during college. Like me getting injured during college or leading into college was the best thing that could have ever happened to me from an academic development standpoint. Like because it turned me into, as the kids say, an academic weapon. Um, but like that's what I was. I was just I became like a total bookworm. And you couldn't peel me away from notes and you couldn't peel me away from whatever I was reading. And all I was worried about was just mental development. And so I'd probably find myself back in something like that. I would just I'd become obsessed with either learning and teaching or I would be trying to coach or something. Like can I pin it directly down? No, because sort of my ADHD personality will just like hyper fixate on something and be like, this is all we want to do. Um, and then sometimes that gets like positively reinforced by success, which is what happened with HYROX and fitness and all that kind of stuff. And I just end up going deeply down that path. It would be something that it could be completely random that I get hyper fixated on, started having success with. I get a positive feedback loop going, and you're like, Dylan is now the premier expert in whatever this is. Um, who knows? It's like he's really good at stippling, like he does stipple art now. Who knows?
Okay. This has been great. Just one question to finish up on. What is your favorite ever sporting experience? Is that one of the HYROX races we've touched on, or something else?
No, it's actually it's almost a it's a wild experience to be honest. And it was a trail half marathon when I was just getting back to where I could like run and stuff again. So I was probably around 20-ish years old at this time. Um, so I go out to do this trail half marathon in Harbison State Forest, which is in Columbia, South Carolina. It's in the middle of July, and down here it is insanely hot and humid. To try to race like during that time frame. So I go off the front, and I'm in the lead immediately, and open up a pretty big gap. Well, my running was good. My navigation skills were terrible, Greg. Um, so there were just these pink trail markers like along the way. There's these flags every so often, and you're supposed to keep the pink trail flags on your left. And I can't figure out when and where I got mixed up and turned around, but some way, somehow, I end up getting mixed up and lost, like out in those woods. And I end up going backwards and running the wrong way. So I pass people and I'm like, well, did they send us on like a out curve around and back? Like I don't have a trail map in my hand, so I don't know where we're going. So I figure out, okay, I'm going the wrong way now. So I turn back around, start chasing the people that I ran myself from first back to third. And then I run from third and I see this guy who was in first and I go catch him. He's lost. Um, so now we're both lost. It's extremely hot. We have no water, like nowhere to go. We've added on, we end up running around in the middle of these woods until we finally find like a trail map that's just like posted up somewhere. We figure out, okay, we're supposed to be here. We went there. We come back here. We've added like 6 miles to this half marathon, with no water stops or anything. We finally get back on the trail. I had a person that was posted up at mile 9 to give me like nutrition and stuff. They're like, well, he's long gone. Like he should have passed by here a long time ago. So they left and went to the finish. So I'm like, dude, my blood sugar's done. I'm dehydrated as hell. And it's just me and this guy named James running through the woods lost. And so as we get almost to the end, we're literally a half mile from the finish. And we have to take this turn into the woods, snake our way through, come out, boom, there's the finish shoot. Actually, I say a half mile. It was a half mile if we followed the shortest route. I was like, James, we've gotten so lost, but we're running the actual trail route for this race. I don't care that we've added 6 miles. We're gonna do it all the way through. He's like, all right, cool, fine with me. James is doing a lot better than I am. Um, we turn onto this trail route to start running, and Greg, I trip on something, blackout. I hit my head on the ground, and I know that I'm unconscious for at least 12 minutes of running because somehow I knocked myself out, but I stopped my watch. So I don't remember this period of my life. Okay. Apparently, I got back up and I just kept running with James. And James is like, dude, you took a heart. Like, I find this all out because I called him like a week later after I got out of the hospital and everything. And we'll get to that. Call him to like figure out what all happened during that 10-minute span. So 10 to 12-minute span, however long it took. So he's asking me questions. I'm completely oblivious to any of this. I'm answering, I'm nailing like whatever this quiz is. I'm like, I know you. You're a school teacher from Michigan. This is the first time I've ever met this guy too. And he told me all this 45 minutes earlier. So I've got all this recall. So he thinks this guy's totally lucid. I'm completely oblivious to anything that's going on during my life. I finished the race, and then the next memory that I have, other than what had been told to me from when I hit my head, is I wake up on a park bench surrounded by EMS. And we start figuring out that I have no memory of things because they start asking me, like, hey, before we do, like, have you had food? Have you had fluids? Have you? And I'm like, nah, I hadn't had anything. There's a picture of me at the finish line with a banana. Like, I don't remember any of this shit. So I end up in the hospital with like really, really bad dehydration and they finally kind of get me back right. But the reason I love the story so much is that it told me in that moment that even if I'm completely blacked out unconscious, my only thought is to finish the job. And that was cemented in me. And I'm like, oh, that's who I am. Like, I'm no longer making conscious decisions for myself. I just get up and keep running. And that's whenever somebody asks, like, what's like a defining moment or something in your life? It's when I reflect back on that. I look at that race and I go, oh, I can basically be dead, and all I do is go, we're gonna finish the race. So that's one of my favorite stories. With regards to if you want to know me as a person.
That's great. I must admit, I was thinking actually, as you were saying it, like we spoke about like characteristics amongst like the elite 15, and I think that would be fairly common amongst that group. Whereas, like even someone like myself, I'd just be like, I've got lost. I'll probably just like write this race off now, and I've got no water.
Yeah.
Whereas, like I think like a lot of the elite 15 would do what you did, and even though you've run 6 miles too long, you're just going to do the right course and take it to the max. I think that's common amongst that
I
group.
would agree. There's this obsessive stubbornness to
Yeah.
you've done everything to make it harder. You could just take the easy way right here and finish. And it's not even the easy way because you made it way too hard. You're like, but does it count? Like, does it really count?
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, this has been brilliant. Thank you. Uh, for people who want to follow you, find out more about you and coaching and everything like that. Yeah, tell us where to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like personal stuff, you can just go to the Hybrid Raccoon. That's me on Instagram. If you're looking at like the coaching and everything, you can go to hybridraccoonracing.com. Take a look on there. We've got the like 16-week prep ebook. So if you're a somewhat experienced athlete, you've been training for a little while, but you're like, hey, I think that I could really kind of hone things in and prep for a race and show up really well prepared. That's your route to go there. And then we're working on releasing like a beginner's ebook. Like, hey, I just want to get into HYROX. I need to have some guidance. I need to have a couple workouts a week that's going to get me prepped up to be able to show up, complete my first race, and then get to the finish line and not be unconscious and have photos of you eating banana you don't remember. Then that one will be there as well. And then we've got the one-on-one coaching option where you can, work with me and we can whatever it is your goal is. I work with some folks that do marathons, half Ironmans, some folks that just do focus on high rock stuff. I'm not gonna be like, hey, you need an Olympic lifting coach. I'm like, that's not me. But I have a lot of people come for not just hybrid sports. And we've seen a lot of success there as well. So feel pretty confident in working with people on that level. And a lot of athletes don't want to just do high rocks. Like they love to actually branch out and be like, hey, I want to do 10K road race and I want to do a 70.3. So kind of having a coach that can tailor things to meet you on those levels as well, and not have to have a coach for every single little thing that you want to do, I think makes it a lot easier. But yeah, you can find me in those kind of two locations.
Okay, awesome. And then it's Hamburg next for you, is it?
Yeah, so we're gonna go to Oslo first. I'm gonna do a pro doubles race with a French athlete named Quentin Garrel. He raced over at Worlds, finished pretty high up. He's a sub 60 guy, but I've just met him through the sport, and we're like, hey, I need to do a tune-up race before Hamburg. My wife studied it at the University of Oslo, Norway, when she did study abroad stuff. She's always wanted to go back. So we're gonna do that as like an anniversary trip. She's gonna race, I'm gonna race, and then I'm gonna head down to Hamburg from there. So my first race will really be a pro doubles at the end of September. Then we really kick it up, and then we've got hopefully me and Rich Ryan are gonna do a pro doubles in Hamburg as well. So
Nice.
that'll be fun. But yeah,
Nice.
that's what we got on the horizon.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you for this, mate.